quiet evening, a clean kitchen, and a dishwasher humming softly in the background. What no one knew, what no one could know, was that inside that appliance wasn't just a pile of dirty dishes. Hidden between ceramic plates and stainless steel cutlery was a blooded knife, the very weapon that ended a life. In tonight's chilling case, we follow the frantic descent of a man who committed the ultimate crime and believed he could wash away the evidence. But murder leaves more than just a stain. It leaves secrets, panic, and a trail of lies. This is the story of a single moment of violence that spiraled into paranoia, cover-ups, and a desperate attempt to pretend nothing happened. Welcome to True Crime Hub. Subscribe, stay alert, and prepare yourself for a tale that proves one thing: the truth always finds a way out. Michael and Hannah Greaves lived in a modest ranch-style home at the edge of Pine Ridge Lane, a quiet suburb where people left doors unlocked and waved at neighbors. Michael, a local contractor, was known as quiet and dependable. Hannah worked part-time at a floral shop and had a smile that warmed every room she entered. They weren't perfect, but they were the kind of couple that people described as normal, even enviable. Until the arguments began. It started subtly. A shift in Hannah's posture, an edge in Michael's voice. Neighbors occasionally overheard muffled yelling, but nothing ever sounded dangerous. Not until July 17th. That night, the neighborhood was still. Crickets chirped, a dog barked in the distance, and then, nothing. A silence so thick it felt unnatural. Inside the Greaves home, the kitchen was a mess. A shattered wine glass, a toppled chair, and a pool of blood that darkened the floor. Hannah was lying there, lifeless. Michael, frozen in place, stared down at what he'd done. A steak knife, its blade slick and red, trembled in his hand. Michael didn't move for what felt like hours. His mind raced with conflicting thoughts: guilt, fear, denial. Finally, in a haze of panic, he acted. He grabbed paper towels to blot the blood. He dragged Hannah's body to the hallway, then returned to the kitchen. The knife. What should he do with it? His eyes darted to the dishwasher. He opened the door and placed the knife inside, right between a soup spoon and a dirty plate, as if tucking it away in the dishwasher might erase the violence it had just inflicted. He started cleaning. He sprayed bleach, scrubbed counters, changed clothes, flushed paper towels. He even lit a scented candle, citrus and lavender, as if that would mask what had happened. Then, he rehearsed his lie. She went out. They had an argument. She stormed off. He fell asleep. When he finally dialed 911 the next morning, his voice was calm. "My wife didn't come home last night. I'm worried." Police arrived. Michael welcomed them in. He was cooperative, almost too cooperative. One officer noticed the kitchen was unusually spotless, overly cleaned. Suspicious. A missing persons case was filed. Flyers printed. Interviews conducted. Michael cried on cue. But behind the tears was a tremor, a fear he couldn't hide. And then, he made his first mistake. He forgot to empty the dishwasher. A week later, detectives returned with a search warrant. They opened drawers, closets, the garage. When they opened the dishwasher, they paused. Inside, among the now dry plates, was the knife. Blood still crusted at the hilt. A match for Hannah's DNA. The illusion cracked. The forensics team went to work. Luminol revealed faint blood traces beneath the bleach. The knife was tested. Fibers from Hannah's shirt were embedded in the blade. Michael was brought in for questioning. His story unraveled quickly. First, he denied everything. Then, when faced with the evidence, he shifted. It was an accident. But the autopsy showed otherwise. Multiple stab wounds. Defensive injuries. Hannah had fought for her life. Now the question wasn't if he killed her, but why. Detectives dug into Michael and Hannah's digital life. They found texts, hundreds of them, revealing a fractured marriage. Affairs. Accusations. Resentment. One message stood out. From Michael, a week before the murder: "If you leave me, you'll regret it." Friends told investigators Hannah had planned to move out. She had a deposit down on an apartment. She was finally ready to start over. Michael knew, and he couldn't take it. The autopsy confirmed the brutality of the attack. Hannah had been stabbed 5 times, twice in the chest, once in the stomach, and twice in the arms. Classic defensive wounds. The pathologist testified she was likely alive for the first few blows. That meant she suffered. The coroner also found skin cells under Hannah's nails, Michael's. She'd fought him, clawed at him, tried to survive. This was not a crime of passion, argued prosecutors. It was a calculated act. In the days following the murder, Michael had tried to erase all signs of the crime. But detectives found a laundry load hidden in the garage washer. Blood-soaked towels, a t-shirt with small flecks of blood, socks crusted with dried fluid. DNA tests confirmed it, Hannah's blood. The volume suggested heavy bleeding. Michael had not only killed his wife, he'd meticulously tried to clean up. But every towel, every cloth, every wash cycle was a trail of evidence. Detectives widened the scope. They pulled footage from traffic cameras and home surveillance systems around Pine Ridge Lane. At 11:34 p.m. on the night of the murder, Michael's car could be seen pulling into his driveway. But what caught attention was the next clip, 3:12 a.m. Michael was seen carrying a black trash bag from his garage to his car. He drove off. When he returned 45 minutes later, the bag was gone. Where had he gone? What was in the bag? The footage led investigators to a wooded area 5 miles from Michael's home. A small state park, rarely visited. Search dogs swept the area. Within an hour, they found it, a partially buried trash bag. Inside, Hannah's purse, her phone, smashed, and clothing. Torn. Blood-stained. Personal. Evidence. It painted a picture of what Michael hoped to bury. Not just evidence, but the memory of who Hannah was. Michael was charged with second-degree murder. The trial began 8 months after Hannah's death. Prosecutors called it a case of control, rage, and calculated cleanup. Defense attorneys claimed diminished capacity. Stress. A moment of lost control. But the jury watched the footage, saw the messages, heard the coroner's testimony, and most damning of all, they saw the knife, pulled from a dishwasher, still coated in the truth. Hannah's friends and family took the stand. Her sister wept as she recalled Hannah's dreams, opening her own floral shop, starting over, finally feeling free. A co-worker recounted seeing bruises once. Hannah brushed it off. A neighbor confessed guilt. I heard yelling. I should have checked. Their testimonies didn't just support the prosecution. They humanized Hannah, made the loss real. Michael took the stand. His demeanor was cold, detached. He described a heated argument where things got out of hand. But when asked if he remembered stabbing her 5 times, he stammered. Deflected. The prosecutor asked, "Why did you put the knife in the dishwasher?" Michael paused. I wasn't thinking. But the jury thought otherwise. After 5 hours of deliberation, the jury returned. Guilty. Michael Greaves was sentenced to 32 years to life. No chance of parole for at least 28. As the judge read the sentence, Hannah's mother clutched her photo. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Justice." But justice doesn't bring back the dead. Hannah's family started a foundation in her name, focused on domestic abuse awareness. Her story became a cautionary tale in community centers and schools. Listen to the signs, her sister said during a local TV interview. Don't ignore the fear. Don't wait. The dishwasher became a symbol of how abusers try to hide their crimes. But the stains never truly wash away. Pine Ridge Lane was never the same. The Greaves house sold months later, but no one stayed long. Neighbors installed cameras. Doors were locked at night. Conversations shifted from bake sales to safety tips. Michael's crime didn't just shatter one life. It haunted a neighborhood, made people question what they thought they knew. Because sometimes, the most horrific acts happen behind the quietest doors. After Michael's conviction, the home where he and Hannah once lived sat empty for months. Her childhood bedroom, once filled with pastel colors and floral prints, was dismantled and boxed away by her grieving sister. Inside her closet, they found journals, notes, scribbled dreams and fears. One entry stood out. I think he'll snap. I don't know when, but I feel it in my bones. It painted a haunting portrait of the emotional toll she carried in silence. Experts in domestic abuse reviewed the case. They pointed to multiple red flags: Michael's possessiveness, Hannah's increasing isolation, the sudden withdrawal from friends. These weren't isolated incidents. They were patterns. The community began holding seminars on recognizing the early signs. Hannah's tragedy became a lesson that silence can be fatal. A deep dive into Michael's past revealed something unsettling. An ex-girlfriend from college came forward. She described verbal abuse, paranoia, and once being pushed during an argument. She never reported it. She thought she was overreacting. But it showed a chilling pattern. Hannah wasn't the first. She was just the one who never got out in time. True crime forums exploded with theories. Amateur sleuths dissected the case frame by frame. One thread uncovered a deleted Facebook post from Michael days before the murder. People push too far sometimes. Then they wonder why you break. The digital footprint painted a more sinister portrait than Michael's defense ever anticipated. Surveillance from her floral shop revealed Hannah's last day alive. She laughed with a coworker. She picked out a bouquet she said was for new beginnings. At lunch, she made a call, likely to her sister, where she talked about being scared but determined to leave. She never got the chance. A teenage neighbor later remembered seeing something on the night of the murder, a flickering porch light and Michael pacing the driveway. They thought he was on a late call. Now, they know he was debating his next move. That moment, small and unreported, might have been the last normal sighting before he crossed the line. Criminologists explained Michael's behavior post-crime as classic post-homicidal panic. Cleaning, hiding the weapon, creating a false narrative. These weren't signs of a remorseful man. They were signs of someone desperate to save himself. In court, it became the foundation of motive, control and fear of consequences. The decision to hide the knife in the dishwasher baffled even seasoned detectives. Some said it showed arrogance, believing the appliance could sanitize away murder. Others saw it as symbolic, a desperate hope that technology could erase trauma. Instead, it preserved the weapon that convicted him. Local news covered every development. National headlines read, "Dishwasher murder in suburbia." The story tapped into collective fears, of hidden violence, of domestic darkness masked by smiles. It forced the public to question, how well do we really know the people we live with? Years later, Hannah's story still echoed. A mural was painted in her memory at the local shelter she once donated to. Her name became a symbol of hope, and her face, a reminder of the cost of silence. Survivors now walk through those shelter doors whispering her name, drawing strength from her legacy. Michael's father, a retired naval officer, had remained silent throughout the trial. But following the verdict, he gave a brief interview. He didn't defend his son. He didn't deny the facts. "I raised him to be better than this," he said, eyes glazed. Somewhere along the way, he lost who he was. It was one of the rare acknowledgments of guilt from the Greaves family. Months into his sentence, Michael shared a cell with a man named Julio Ramirez. Ramirez later told prison counselors that Michael had boasted about getting rid of the knife. He said, "They almost missed it. It was clean enough." Julio's account made it into parole board records, cementing Michael's lack of remorse. While cataloging evidence, detectives discovered a hidden folder on Michael's old laptop titled Freedom. Inside were searches on how to dispose of a body, can bleach destroy DNA, and missing spouse police protocol. These searches began a full month before Hannah's death. Premeditation became irrefutable. Hannah had seen a therapist 3 times in the months before her death. Confidentiality rules prevented release of notes, but with family permission, they were reviewed by prosecutors. In them, Hannah described feeling trapped, afraid, and surveilled. She told her therapist, "If anything happens to me, it's him." On Hannah's phone was a music playlist titled Starting Over. It was filled with empowering songs, most with lyrics about freedom, escape, and hope. She had been mentally preparing herself to leave. Music had been her armor. Now, it became her eulogy. During the investigation, detectives noted a persistent scent of lavender in the home. It wasn't just a candle, it was Hannah's favorite scent. She used it to calm herself. After the murder, Michael had lit every lavender candle he could find, to mask the smell of bleach or of guilt. Records showed that 3 days before the murder, Michael had rented a small sedan. It was returned with higher mileage than expected. Traces of blood were found in the trunk. Though it wasn't enough for another charge, it painted a larger picture of premeditation and panic. In the garage, beneath a toolbox, police found a second knife, smaller, stained with dried blood. Tests were inconclusive, but prosecutors believed it may have been the first weapon Michael used. Why switch knives? Why hide the other? It added another chilling layer of calculation. Inside Michael's home office drawer was a flash drive labeled private. It contained a mix of personal photos, journal entries, and videos. One file stood out, a video of Michael talking to the camera. "I just want peace," he said. "One way or another, I will get it." The timestamp was 2 nights before the murder. On the day of her murder, Hannah had ordered a bouquet for her sister, scheduled to be delivered the next morning. The card read, "Thank you for believing in me. Here's to new beginnings." That bouquet was delivered, but Hannah wasn't there to see her sister cry when she opened it. It became the last message she ever sent. Hannah's wedding ring was never found at the crime scene. Later, investigators discovered it tucked behind a false panel in Michael's closet. Why hide it? Was it a trophy? A denial of the bond he had destroyed? To Hannah's family, it was more than jewelry. It was a symbol of trust, broken, buried, and betrayed. A week before the murder, a neighbor saw Michael sitting alone in his car at 2 a.m., engine off, headlights off. When asked later, Michael claimed he was cooling off. But after piecing together the timeline, detectives believed he was rehearsing. Scouting. It wasn't a spontaneous crime. It was a scheduled nightmare. Michael claimed he tried calling Hannah's phone repeatedly after she stormed out. But phone records showed no outgoing calls to her number during that window. It was a lie. A simple one, but deadly in court. It proved deception, even when the truth would have served him better. When Michael scrubbed the kitchen, he forgot one thing: the underside of the dining table. There, investigators found blood splatter and partial fingerprints. The angle suggested a defensive position. Hannah had crawled, reaching for safety. He missed it. And in that miss, the story was told. Security footage from a candle factory adjacent to the woods where Michael dumped evidence captured a blurred silhouette. Though unclear, the footage matched Michael's jacket and walk. It placed him at the scene when he claimed to be asleep. A timeline lie unraveled in pixels. Hannah's sister, Claire, became the voice of the voiceless. She organized vigils, gave speeches, and later, published a memoir titled When the Dishwasher Spoke. Her strength fueled legislation for better domestic violence prevention programs across the state. At sentencing, Judge Henley spoke directly to Michael. You did not just kill a woman. You tried to erase her. That's what makes this unforgivable. Her words echoed through courtrooms and news broadcasts. A chilling reminder of how murder is more than a moment. It's an attempt to silence a legacy. At 10:46 p.m. the night of her death, Hannah had typed out a message to her sister. I think I'm leaving tonight. Pray for me. She never hit send. Detectives found the draft in her unsent folder. A last cry for help, swallowed by fate. In prison, Michael was denied visits from most relatives. But a distant cousin, believing in his innocence, kept showing up. Eventually, she stopped. She had read the court files, watched the testimonies, and saw Michael for what he was, not misunderstood, but monstrous. The new owners of the house replaced everything, except the dishwasher. It remained silent and functional, until one day, it stopped working. A repairman pulled it apart, and found a corroded trace of blood in a seam. The final echo of a murder machine. The courtroom was silent, the only sound the ticking of the wall clock echoing across polished floors. On the stand, the prosecutor delivered his closing argument, detailing each moment of the crime, the cover-up, and the cold calculation. His words painted a picture too vivid to ignore. Tyler's face remained stoic, but his leg bounced nervously beneath the table. The defense countered with one final attempt, highlighting his remorse, his clean record before the murder, and arguing that it was a crime of passion. But for many in the gallery, especially the victim's family, it was too little, too late. The judge's instructions to the jury were clear. Deliberations began. 12 strangers locked in a room. 12 lives with the weight of one decision. Some were ready to convict from the beginning. Others hesitated, haunted by the idea of sending someone away for life. They debated motive, evidence, the blood-soaked dishwasher, the knife, the timeline, Tyler's phone records. After 10 hours, a consensus began to form. The pieces all pointed to one conclusion, one word: guilty. The 4 persons signed the form, her hands trembling. When they returned to the courtroom, the verdict was read aloud. Tyler didn't blink, but his mother behind him let out a quiet sob. The community buzzed with the news. Social media lit up. The dishwasher detail, how Tyler tried to hide the murder weapon, became a symbol of his cowardice and desperation. The victim's name trended. Her family's grief aired on every channel. In court statements, her brother said, he tried to wash away the truth. But you can't rinse off murder. Tyler was sentenced to life in prison. No parole. Journalists swarmed the town for interviews. A documentary offer followed. But the family declined. We don't want to relive it, they said. We just want her remembered for who she was, not how she died. Years passed. From a maximum security prison, Tyler wrote letters to the victim's family. Apologies, explanations, pleas for forgiveness. None were ever answered. One letter stood out. I see her face every night. I relive it. I wish I'd walked away that day. I wish I'd been a better man. He kept a photo of her in his cell, not from the crime, but from the days before, when they were still happy. The guards often found him staring at it for hours. But forgiveness never came, and neither did peace. The case of Tyler and the knife in the dishwasher became a warning about anger, impulsivity, and the illusion that we can erase the past with convenience. It wasn't just a crime. It was a tragedy of moments, a relationship soured, a decision made in rage, a life stolen, and another wasted. For viewers of True Crime Hub, remember this: every crime begins with a choice. One moment of silence, one breath of reflection, might have spared a life. If you found this story powerful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And always, stay aware, stay kind, and stay safe.